Good afternoon. So let's go ahead and answer any questions. Of course, we're just make this brief statement. We're excited to say the very least about the prospects of being in this tournament and playoffs, and to the man in the organization, certainly in the team, that everybody understands the importance, the gravity, the excitement that's around the team, and want to sustain that and perpetuate that by playing as good as we possibly can, and understand that all the teams that we might have in consideration as playing are going to be at their very best when they come to AT&T Stadium. So everybody is obviously on a high alert energy level to be the best they can. Any questions?
Before we start talking more about the team and going forward, can you discuss the decision that you got from the NFL yesterday on Randy Gregory, and express what your support will be during this period with the suspension? And would you like to see him challenge it in federal court anyway?
Okay. We'll continue, or second part of that, we'll continue to support Randy in every way. And he is one of the favorites with his teammates, one of the favorites with his coaches, has shown us his potential, really held a good accounting of himself during this period of time that he's been active with the team. It was no surprise that we had the ruling that we had. Can't really comment on any of the details of the ruling or as to anticipated plans regarding the ruling. All I will say is that it was not a surprise in terms of them dismissing his arguments at the hearing, and I don't right now. I'm not at liberty to talk about what we'll do regarding specifically the ruling by the mediator and the league. So we'll just stay tuned there, but I don't have any detail or anything I can comment about.
Is there disappointment in him that he's not able to play? I know you're going to support him, but is there a level of disappointment you have that he is in this situation?
Well, again, I don't. If I could solve this overall problem, then I'm in a spot that I need to be in a different spot. This is quite a convoluted, important problem in our society, and some of the issues that involve Randy. He's genuine in his efforts. He's genuine in his rehab efforts, and I don't have any comment as to my assessment of how successful that he's been. I will tell you that that I can make this one thing, that as this appears, does not reflect some of the success that he's having and that he's had. And so I do have reason to be encouraged about his future.
Jerry, not that this is a societal fix, and maybe not specifically to Gregory, but wouldn't one of the ways for the NFL to repair this problem is to decriminalize marijuana?
Yeah, I can't comment on that for that very reason. But the facts are that as it relates to this specific case, there obviously are questions, not questions, but there are aspects of it that are open to debate. And so I think that that's certainly a possibility as we look to the future.
You hope to have him back on the field?
I know I'm being very vague here, but his case is very much active, and the resolution of it has a lot of different possibilities, and I don't want to in any way, with any comment that I could make, influence those.
You hope to have him back on the field in 2018. Would that be a success story if you can get him back there?
Well, I really hope and expect to have Randy Gregory back on the field. for us, and I don't want to put a time frame on it, and I wouldn't want to be long or short there.
He's put so much work in, you guys as an organization have put so much work in to get him better, to get him to this point. What concern do you have this is going to be detrimental to all the work that you put in and that he's put in?
He's tough. He's mentally, he has mental toughness, and he has a resolve, and he has a lot of the right stuff. And so I think that'll serve him well as he looks ahead to his life and career. He's obviously very young and has got a lot of really positives that I think give him a lot to look forward to positively.
Is the activity of a Randy Gregory case within NFL parameters, or does it go beyond that?
Oh, I think health goes beyond the NFL. So if you looked at it, or if I addressed my answer in the health basis, then certainly that in and of itself can be an issue. The health thing should go beyond the possible guidelines of the NFL. And so all of that will, I think, come to bear as he continues to get in a place that we all want him to be, and that's on the field for the Cowboys. But I am there, as disappointed as we are, as much as we would like to have him out here helping us in these playoffs, as much as his teammates would like to have him out here. We're still very disappointed that he's not. That's not good that he's not at all. But there are some encouraging things that would, I think, see a light potentially at the end of the tunnel. And I don't believe that's dreaming.
Not to suggest that Gregory's not culpable, but is the ruling, in your view, unjust for reasons that
Again, Mike, I don't want to get into my interpretation or my judgment on where we are with our policies right now. But I think, and for the most part, because his options are still to be possibly exercised as to right at the moment. So this is a highly sensitive time for any comments.
When you go back even to free agency and you don't sign a veteran backup quarterback, you don't get Lynch, you don't get Connor Cook, and then you look at the Kellen Moore injury and a Tony Romo injury. When you look at all those things, how lucky do you feel that Dak actually got on the field this year and was able to play and show you what he asked?
Not one time was there ever a consideration to bring in a veteran quarterback. Not once. I know we had some speculation about a quarterback there in training camp after Tony's injury and after Kellen's injury, but not one time was it ever seriously considered to bring in. We were going to go with these two young guys and give them every opportunity. Once we were at that point, we were going to give them every opportunity, both of them, to really get the most out of our preseason. And the idea really was founded more on our belief that the best way for us to have a successful season, candidly, was to wait on Tony to get back. And that might have been a thought that I'm describing before Kellen's injury, but it was the same thought after the injury. After we got back here and the squad's cut down and Mark Sanchez became available, then we thought it was a good idea. But that decision was made after we had seen the preseason with Dak's work and the progress that he had made. And so we didn't bring Sanchez in with the aspect of competing, so not at one time. So the thing that we did do was create a situation where these young guys could have an opportunity to literally get more reps than probably their draft status or their free agent status could get.
What do you remember about the conversation when you drafted Sean Lee, given his college injuries, what the pluses and minuses were?
I remember an ESPN special on him. I don't know why, but it's the thing I remember most. But it was an ESPN special that referred to him as brother, referred to him as God. And that's the kind of respect that his brother had for him. Now, we all know brothers and sisters, and we're not inclined to give those kinds of superlatives about our sibling. Well, that's the way that his brother felt about him growing up with him as far as the impact that he made, an older brother. And, of course, he had other really superlatives things said about him while he was there at Penn State. But bottom line is that I remember that we had him and we had Bowman that ended up going to San Francisco. We had them as our 15th, 16th player in the first round on the draft board.
To see him with a chance to finally play in a playoff game, what's your excitement level for Sean?
I'm excited for this team. I'm excited, yes, and certainly always excited for any player or coach or anyone involved. But this team, to get the benefit of Sean, 2 years ago, I really wanted to just wait it out on putting him on IR with the hopes that maybe he could get back in time to play in that game that we had against Green Bay. And he might have been able to make it, but we all know how that works on those injuries. They've got rehab, and everybody thought it was best for him just to concentrate on rehabbing. But I remember watching Rodgers take it down the field against us 2 years ago and wishing we had Sean Lee out there. And I knew he was sitting over there pretty healthy. Now, I don't know if he's ready to defend Rodgers, but it would have been probably good to have him in the game. But he's a difference maker, and he obviously was one that we decided we didn't want to risk anything with up there in Philadelphia. But it is really an enhancement to our chances here in the playoff to have a healthy Sean Lee out there.
You guys wear the T-shirts that say finish. You see them everywhere. It's been such a great regular season, but how much do you guys need to live up to that and really finish this thing off? You've got such a great opportunity.
You know, I think that in light of what happened to us 9 years ago, and there's still really some people around that experience that, namely the head coach. And but in light of that, I think that it's so branded on our forehead of just how you can have a huge disappointment after having a great year. And so that doesn't necessarily carry over to the game. So I think that is really helping us here. I think last year's 4 wins is so fresh on our memory. I'm a big believer that adversity does carry over, and it can be as big or better motivator than success if you can reflect back on it and wear it for a day or wear it for 2 days. Pretend that you're trying to drive in and come into this office after you've had the Sunday that you don't want to have, and pretend going in and sitting there and looking out across that field and pretend how bleak that feels. All of that kind of stuff, I think, helps get you ready to just empty your bucket in terms of what you do out there in that playoff game.
It took you a while to draft an offensive lineman in the first round. Today, 3 of them were named first-team All-Pro. Can you just talk about the decision you guys started in 2011 to go Tyron, and obviously subsequently?
Well, if you recall, it wasn't as big a decision as you might think, although there's a big difference in a first and second rounder. But we wrote the book on drafting offensive linemen in the second round, early and late in the second round, and had some pretty good luck with Flozell Adams, had some pretty good luck there with Gerard, had some pretty good luck right over in that second round. Guys that we had in the first round but had dropped to the second round. Now, it took a little bit more to step up there and start taking them in the first round. But I think that it was just a case of that was the best player there at the time. We all know how Zach Martin got here. And so we know that had 2 or 3 defensive players up there and had a quarterback up there that certainly was vying for his spot. But at the end of the day, there was no question that he was the better player left on the board at that time. So I would say that it really, Tyron, when we lost Flozell, we knew that the left tackle was a position of need, and Tyron, frankly, his character, even though he was sitting there with the potential Rhodes Scholar, and he was sitting there with Solder out of Colorado State, a top character guy. We loved Tyron's character because he's the guy that since he'd been about 8 or 9 years old had been working in those office buildings out there all night cleaning up. And he was proud of that, and it carried over, and boy, the best thing about him, as talented as he can be, is his work ethic. So he made that easy for us, the need, and made that one easy for us. The next year to step up there and do that swapping around and trade down and do, that was a little more of a challenge, a little more of a reach. We had thought that we were thought to be reaching. We knew of his intellect, but we were thought to be reaching there. You don't like to think of a center, but that's what was there for us. We actually had Pugh in mind, and Pugh has already been taken by the Giants, and so that was good to go. Now, I know y'all don't need all this recap, but all I'm saying is when I look at how we ended up with this lineman, I can't really tell you that it was designed for 3 years in a row to step up there and draft offensive linemen. I'm not trying to take away from it. It didn't feel bad to go do it because we knew that if they panned out, which they don't always pan out, we've got one Cooper that we brought in here 2 days ago. And Cooper, we lusted for him. We wanted him so bad and like to died when Arizona took him. And so same cats that had picked the guys we got are the same guys that thought Cooper was going to be the next coming, including me. And so just goes to show you it helps to be able to have some pretty good results out of these guys when you might have had it evaluated pretty good, you thought.
Jerry, a rookie quarterback has never won the Super Bowl. Why do you think it could be different with Dak?
I'm sorry?
A rookie quarterback has never won the Super Bowl. Why do you think it could be different with Dak?
I think Dak has had rare experience. He's had success along with the reps and the time. I think the kinds of things that veteran quarterbacks do that make them successful in the Super Bowl is what has made Dak successful. His preparation, his conscientiousness toward his work, his basically execution, taking it to the field, taking it to practice. I think all of those things have given him an inordinate bank of experience. And so then the other thing is, while I know it's going to be at a stepped-up level of competition, just the way that he's responded. He's responded to adversity, and he's responded to challenges during the game and during series within the game. So I think all of those give me some peace of mind that we're not dealing with the normal rookie definition of a rookie quarterback.
Jerry, are you surprised a guy like Cole Beasley's leading the team in receiving this year?
His ability to separate and his instincts, his football intelligence. The only surprising thing about Cole is his size, to have had the success with his size. On the other hand, I don't know where the limitation is to be able to plant and separate. I'm not so sure where the size limitation is on being able to do that with that kind of quickness either. So what you get is what you've lost is what you get maybe with him. But the fact that he can separate makes him a favorite of quarterbacks. And so that doesn't surprise me that he has a large number of receptions.
There are a couple times you could have fired Jason Garrett and moved on to somebody else, and you stuck with him. How proud are you of what job he's done this year now as a Coach of the Year candidate?
Well, I am extremely proud in this obvious way. If you look at the status of this team, not just the one-loss record, but if you look at the way we've handled our challenges, and you look at the lack of dangling participles out here, you don't have a little awkwardness over here, a little awkwardness over there. This isn't kind of giving us a big problem over there. You learn that when things are really tight, somebody's doing a great job. Because when you've got this many people and you've got the ambiguity of injuries and you've got all of those things, it's not a tight thing. It's loose. It's like holding two handfuls of Jell-O and trying to keep it all in those two hands. And I think Jason has done that. He's very effectively held the jello and is keeping it and moving it forward. My father used to tell me, he said, I know we all got our father stories, but he said, Jerry, it's like your profession or your decision, your life is like having a plate, almost a flat plate full of peas, round peas, and said, you know that if that thing gets even cockeyed a little, the peas will run off. And so the art of the deal is to move the plate off the table and move it as high as you can without the peas starting to go one way or the other. And that's how he would describe it. And that's Jason, and that's this team. He's been able to elevate this team and keep all peas on the plate. I'm proud of him.
Gary, you talked to us a couple. You mentioned a few times during the course of the season now pressure with Dak in the game against the Rams coming out in your conversations with Michael. But can you go to that Seattle game where Tony gets hurt, and his first plays, 3rd and 8, place is loud, and he first down pass to Beasley. Did that open your eyes or do anything to you that day about him?
You're talking Dak.
About Dak. Yeah.
Dak, when he came in during that ball game. Well, we know how challenging Seattle is, so that's a very accurate question. That's hostile, and even hostile in a preseason environment. And so, yes, it did. The coming in with the obvious cloud of disappointment that everybody felt. In other words, it wasn't just a physical thing. That was a mental letdown. Everybody knew that we had had some back problem with Tony after that play. We didn't know the degree, didn't know about the compression factor, but we did know that we had a little something. And so for him to come in on those circumstances was very telling. But his preseason was about as successful as I think you could ever draw up. First of all, he got the snaps. And secondly, he basically would execute, just as I have described, the same way. And so by the time that he got to the regular season game, by the time that we made a decision to bring in Mark Sanchez, it was obviously going to be as a backup. Well, he had established that in the preseason. That is amazing that you could get that kind of confidence. But his coaching staff, Scott, Jason, his teammates, there just was a groundswell of confidence in him. He just sold everybody. And so that was, frankly, you had an inordinate feeling of confidence going into the first game that shouldn't have been there for a guy that was playing his first regular season game. And again, let's carry that all the way through this season and get it to right now. Some of the same dynamic has gone on over the season that would cause you to feel that way now.
Jalen Smith talked pretty optimistically yesterday about next year. Do you see him being full go come May?
Well, let me just say this. You guys know that I hung on to the last thread that he would play this year. And yes, that was some wishing and that was some dreaming, but that was also really seeing him making serious progress, and of course a great feel for what he is as an individual. Now this guy's a leader. He's got the stuff that Dak's got in terms of leadership, and he too will put the work in. And we know he's a true. Legitimate top defensive player that we can really help build that defense around. I really thought that something would come out and that he would have enough nerve feeling that could make it possible for him to be in these playoffs. I was a little not mused. I was smiling when I saw him say, I think I could play. The problem is we had to make that decision about 3 weeks ago, and it's going to cost us a roster spot. And we were not, of course, thinking that it would be completely ready for him to go. There was the issue of him not having played football for a year, but his specialness, I thought, could overcome that. And so I don't mind telling you, I waited until the very last second, almost the midnight hour, to decide, well, let's go ahead and IR him. But I hung on a long time with him because of just what you're seeing out there. Boy, is he fit? Is he ready? He's conditioned. And He's very capable. I thought he possibly could be capable of playing with some limited sensitivity there, and he probably thinks so too. But we're where we are, and that's water under the bridge. But I sure waited until the last minute there.
Jerry, your focus is on what this team can do right now in this postseason run. But when you step back and look at it based on what you talked about, Jason Garrett, what he's brought, that the culture has taken hold now, and the youth of your key guys and where you are, is there also an added element of excitement beyond whatever happens in the next 3 weeks that you're well positioned to be in this thing for a while?
Well, you know, we talk as though there's been a change in culture. I don't buy that. I really don't. I saw where Jason said yesterday he thought he worked as hard last year as he worked this year. Winning really makes that culture thing in vogue. And I'm not being trite here, but we've had some guys here that know how to play and commit and win games. I felt that Jason Garrett, as coach last year with 4 wins, was progressively getting better at winning a significant amount of ball games. The last thing I wanted to do was invest the years that we have had since Jason, who had never head coached anything, have him be our head coach and get this experience and get these very philosophy farming things happen to him over the last 7 years, and have that go someplace else and that franchise take advantage of it. We all know how capable he is and how smart he is. And we all know how driven he is and what football means to him and the quality of his character. So for me, it has been just a question of stacking on the years of experience that he's gotten. And of course, he's evolved from coordinator, head coach coordinator, to full-time walk-around head coach, which is doing an outstanding job, as I've said. So frankly, last year I never crossed my mind, ever, about a coaching change, and it hadn't crossed my mind since he's been the head coach. I want to take advantage of how he is evolving and what he's evolved to do. Some of the philosophy, when you're at that stage, some of that is developing as you go, what those philosophies are. And so we've got now the benefit of a guy that's, in essence, had his nose rubbed in it. He's had some tough days. He's had some successes. Let's take advantage of that. There was another great coach here that coached here for almost the beginning of time, 29 years, that evolved into becoming arguably the greatest coach ever, or one of them. And I'm not saying that he's Tom Landry in any way, but I'm saying that Coach Landry had to evolve. And we're benefiting from that with Jason, in my mind.
Jared, do you allow yourself at all to think about what could be in place for you February 4th and February 5th?
Well, it's so exciting to be a part of this team, so exciting to be a part of the playoffs that, frankly, that has not been the thing that you would focus on. I will just tell you that this year, and what has happened with our football team and what has happened on how our football team has happened, we had some fun with my grandson. And when I think about the plus things that have happened, and then when I look at the Hall of Fame, and I realize that I've been doing this 27 years, and I look back at just the great things that have happened beyond anything I could have ever imagined, then it really is kind of, it seems more than it should be to get that kind of recognition on top of the great experiences that I've had. I know we've had some times when we weren't the most popular guy in town, and to say the very least. But in general, I've been living and working a labor of love. And so it's good.
Jerry, as a general manager, what was your vision for Ezekiel Elliott when you first started out, when you were looking through the draft process and all that? What was your vision as the general manager for the player when you made that call?
I thought that he was a full-time back and that we could I saw the on the field participation that we got in Emmitt Smith. I really saw a back that could stay out there all 3 downs, and that was how he was sold, really, how he was portrayed. His coach, as you recall, said he's the best back away from the ball, that best player, away, offensive player away from the ball that I've ever had. And we were really keen on that. We really did a lot of homework on what he was, because we knew we were taking a position that probably was higher than that position in the current in the current scene deserved. But there's no question we saw that we could not get where we wanted to get by drafting on defense. We didn't see what we really wanted, although Bosa has turned out to be quite a force, it looks like. But we didn't see what we really wanted on defense, and Zeke gave us our best chance to do just what he's done, and that is ball control. And really make a difference, and it complemented the offensive line. It's borne out. If I've ever seen anything that was scripted in the draft room, scripted in the evaluation process, and then has come to bear any more straight down the line than Zeke, I don't know of it. He's exactly more than we had hoped for, but right on what we had hoped for.
Did he have to be, in your mind, an elite or a transformative running back to take him at number 4, given your other needs and given the fact that you have a good offensive line, you have some good free agents in place?
That was the package. His package was, first of all, the word was that he just he sought it, he seeked it out, so to speak. He looked for the football part of it, which is contact, which is he loves that part of it, the physical aspect of it. He was big, he had explosion, he had change of direction, and he had speed. And so, yes, he was. Guys, tell me, when have we seen one we like any better? Is he a once in 10-year kind of back? Well, the guy that was taken the year before from Georgia had the speed aspect of it, but didn't have the away from the ball. Not to take anything away from him, but didn't have the away from the ball. Yes, this guy could be once in 10 years. That type of dialogue went on to get him, and we got satisfied that he's worth that pick.
Do you remember watching him in that national title game?
Yes, I do. There at the stadium. Sure I do. And I know that he carried him for 2 years. And that's not taking anything away from the teammates he's got around him and what have you. He just was that much influence for Ohio State's success there for a 2-year period.
Do you think
and that had a lot to do with it too. We confirmed that was the case, that that wasn't a figment of somebody's imagination.
Do you think his experience 2 years ago in the playoffs, they had to win the Big Ten title game, can that help a rookie at least start to understand what this is going to be like, what he's about to face in these playoffs?
I think maybe I would say, was it going to be too big for him? Were the bright lights, were the crowds, were the magnitude of the games, were any of that going to be a factor with him at running back? And that was never a consideration that he might not be able to handle being the featured back here. And, Dak didn't have much training camp in terms of being on the field. And so we really got our best feel for Dak right after we got back here and after we got into the regular season.
The All-Pro team is a good reflection of the young core you have on offense. On defense, you're losing Randy for a year. You think Jalen could be a boost. How do you see the defense in the bigger picture going forward?
Well, one of the things when are able to get your future in the fourth round at the key position of quarterback, then that should give you hope that you can use your assets, your cap space, your draft pick status. You ought to be able to use that more focused upon the supporting cast around your main strengths, or supplementing where you don't have strengths. In our particular case, we're going to be able to use these draft picks now as we look ahead. We're going to be able to use cap room, of course, to sign the key players that we want to sign that are veterans. But if we have other space, we'll be able to address, in all likelihood, defense. And that is a bonus that getting a quarterback and getting him at that level, that is another major value in being that fortunate. And so I look forward to, I have said, I think Jalen begins our look to the future as a really outstanding talent and outstanding team overall, what you look for in building a team around. I think he's one of them. If I pictured some triplets right now, it might be Jalen, Dak, and Zeke. So as a matter of fact, look up and you'll see them hanging around together a little bit. But still, Jalen is of that stature. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, and I'm not, but I'm not getting out over my skis though. He's the real deal. I'm confident of that.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.